All right, I think everyone that's joining has probably already had a chance to join. We might have some people join as we go on. Um, First off, I'd just like to welcome everyone to our webinar series. My name is Maddie. I'm one of the support team members here at Nexudus. And I just wanted to say we've been getting a lot of feedback about these webinars. A lot of you guys have really enjoyed it. So we'll continue to go through different topics in this format. For those of you that haven't had an opportunity to join the webinar before, we will cover the topic. Today's topic is going to be how to offer discounts to your members. We'll look at some examples, and then we'll close off with some Q&A. The Q&A that will also be ongoing. There's a Q&A section that you can type. We'd ask that all questions be directed directly through that Q&A chat, not through the actual Zoom chat. That way we can track questions a little bit better. So if you do have questions as we go along, feel free to type it in through our Q&A. We also have my colleague, Adrian, who will be answering questions as I present. So feel free to ask anything that comes up as we go through this topic. At the end of this webinar, we'll also keep the chat room open for another 10 minutes, just to make sure that any questions that were asked are answered in time. If we can't get to it in those 10 minutes, then we will be emailing you to make sure that you get a response. We want to make sure that everybody that's participating gets all the information they need out of these webinar series. So thank you for joining us. As you can see, we'll be talking about how to offer discounts to your members today. We'll specifically be talking about how to discount plans and products due to partial or full closure. Now, we're living in a state of unpredictability. A lot of things have happened in the last couple of months, and a lot of spaces, unfortunately, have had partial or full closure. So today, what we'll be talking about is how to manage your members' payment or defer that payment through discounts. We'll look at a couple of examples, specifically targeting discounts for plans, and then we'll also look at recurring products that are attached to those plans as we go along as well. So just to give you an overview, we'll be talking about specifically going through and creating those discounts. So that's a topic that we're going to cover in detail. We want you to understand the mechanics of the discounts and how they work. We'll also talk about how to apply those discounts to the customers so that they're effective when we're actually trying to discount. And then we'll look at the two scenarios as we go along. And again, if you do have questions, please use the Q&A chat, and Adrian will be able to respond to you as we go through. Just to set a goal for our webinar, as we go through this, the goal is that by the end of this webinar, you'd be able to create discount codes that target a specific item for a specific time frame, that you understand the mechanics of the discount so that you can use these effectively to discount your members during the closure. So by the end of this, you should really understand discounts well enough to apply that to your customers. Now, you might be wondering, why specifically are we using discounts and we're not using a suspension or canceling a contract? The reality is that although a lot of spaces are partially closed, we do, in most scenarios, want to keep customers able to access the members portal, be able to access virtual, essentially virtual features that are offered through the platform now. You've seen the Zoom integration. Sam has talked about it. Damien has also gone through in one of our previous webinars and talked about the members board. So we do want to keep the members active in those scenarios. We don't want to remove them from that. And if we were to use suspension or canceling the contract, in a lot of instances, our members would lose access to those features, which we definitely don't want to do. So by using discounts, where we're able to defer the payment, make sure that they're not invoiced, but your customers will still be categorized as members, and they'll be able to use those virtual features as they go through. So that's why we're talking specifically about discounts so that we're not losing any customer access during this time. So we'll start by looking at how to create a discount, how this works. And as we go through it, there's a couple of vocabulary words that you hear talked through. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we're talking about these things. Specifically, we'll be talking about discount amounts. Now, discount amounts can either be reflected as a percent or as a monetary value. We'll explore both scenarios. We'll also talk about the item discounted. So this will be specifically what sales items are being targeted by the discount. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about limits and make sure that we understand those so that we're not using them in any way that can be detrimental during this time. So we will focus on all these different things. And just as a caveat, we will explore this as we get into the example, but just so you understand as we go through it, discounts are applied when invoices are raised. So as we go through this and we create the discount and we apply the discount, those discounts will only be implemented when the actual invoice is created. Okay, so with that in mind, we'll jump over to the dashboard and we're actually going to start walking through and creating a discount from scratch. So if you want to follow along, feel free to open up in another window your own admin panel and you can follow along. So in order to create a discount, we'll have to head over to the finance module. From here, you can select the discount code. Now, if you've previously used discounts, you might have some information populated here. We've created this account for the specific purpose of the webinar, so there's still no discount here, but we're gonna remedy that real soon. So from here, if you wanna create it, you can create from the top right button or from the bottom here. Both will take you to the same screen. There's going to be absolutely no difference. So now we have a pop-up window that will allow us to go through and create the discount. So the first thing that I would like to mention is for those of you that are working with multiple locations or a network, make sure that the location that you have selected is the network, because that will make it easier for you to disperse this discount to all your customers. If you set this up directly from the network, then you'll be able to apply this to all the members in all your locations. You won't have to go in and individually create these for every individual location. Now, in this instance, this account is a single location, so we'll be working with this location. But if you do have network, I would suggest that you select the network in the location, as this will make it easier for you to manage this discount later on. For the discount code, we're actually just going to go through and call it an adjustment discount. It's not going to be a discount code that people will be typing in from the front end, so we don't need to worry about something catchy, but this is definitely something that we'll understand when we look back at the discount. We do also have to add a description, and again, I'm just going to add a description that I've done here before, which is an adjustment due to the COVID-19 closures. Now, the next thing that we'll talk about and what will control this particular discount is whether or not the discount's active. So in order for the discount to apply to our customers, we do have to activate the account. Now, the reason I'm spending so much time here is because right now, a lot of spaces don't know when they're going to be opening back up. That's the unfortunate reality. We don't know if it'll be in a couple of weeks or in 1 week or in a month. So with that indefinite timeline, it's not really a good idea to use the discount validity because we don't have a specific date to set for when this discount will end. Without that date, we can't really make use of this time frame below, which is the validity. So by only relying on the active field, it makes it a little bit simpler because when we do know that we're opening the space back up, rather than coming through or adding a validity date, all we have to do is come back to the discount once we're back and we're open and deactivate the discount. And even though the discount might have been applied to customers, it will no longer be applied because we have gone in and deactivated that. So we'll be relying on this active field to control the time frame of how long this discount applies for, just because it makes it easier for everyone. We're not relying on dates that we might have to change later on, or an expiration that, again, might change down the road. So if you scroll a little bit further down, we'll be looking at the discount amount. Now, by default, you have a percentage selected, and it will be defaulted to 10%. Now, if we were to use the fixed amount, we would define a monetary value here in the currency of your space. So if you're working in the US dollars, out of London for us is pounds, and if you're in Europe, euros, and so on. So whatever amount you're outlining here would be for a fixed monetary amount. It's important to note that if you do decide to go with the fixed amount for some reason, that this does not operate in the same way that a virtual wallet would. So what it really does is it does a one-time discount for this value for a particular invoice. If that invoice is only, let's say in this case, £5, and I apply this discount, then that invoice would be zero, because this covers the full £5 that the invoice is for. But it doesn't mean that there's £10 left over. It would just continuously apply £15 to the invoice each time the discount's used. It's not a virtual wallet that dwindles as it goes along. With a percent, it's a little bit easier to manage, and it's proportional to all the different plans that you might have. So if you have different value plans that need to be targeted, a percent is a little bit easier, as it allows you to create a proportional discount across the board. So in this case, if we're operating with the full closure and we're not charging particular plans, we can go in and type 100% discount. And that way, the items that we're targeting will be discounted at 100%. Now, we've set the bones of the discount. What we now need to do is decide what specific items are going to be targeted by the discount. And in this case, we'll start by looking at the plans, and then we'll look at recurrent products as we come back around to a second example. But just to keep it simple, first we'll start with discounting plans. So from here, we can select to discount a plan. If you only want to discount plans that are maybe affected, so if you're a partial closure and you've only closed off hot desks and part-time access, you can go in and select just those plans, and only those plans will be targeted by this discount. Now, if we don't select any plans at all, we're essentially saying that this discount will cover every plan offered in our space. So in this case, we're going to just keep the discount targeting every single plan that we have in the platform. But if you do need to target very specific plans, you can do that from the drop-down list. Next, and finally, before we move on to actually applying the discount, we'll just briefly touch on limits. Limits in this instance are not going to be very useful, so we really recommend that you don't use these fields, just because it will cause a little bit of confusion. Again, relying on the active and inactive is probably the best way going forward, just because of that indefinite nature that we're in. But if for some reason you do know you only want this discount to be used, let's say 2 or 3 times by a specific customer before you reevaluate, you can set that limit down here. We do just recommend sticking to active, inactive, making things a little bit simpler, but you do have limits to play around with down here as well. In this case, we're just going to keep as is. We have a name, we have a description, it's active, it's for 100%, and we're targeting all plans in this account. So if I go ahead and save, we've now created one of our discounts. And if we want to apply this to a customer, we can do it a couple of different ways. First, I can open up the discount, and right next to the details, I see a customers tab, And from here, I can go through and I can add the different customers. So if I go ahead and add Ion here, then Ion will now be receiving this discount. For spaces that are dealing with a large number of members, this would be not a very feasible way to go through and add every single customer you have. In those instances, what we'd request is that you reach out to support, and we'll happily do this in bulk for you, as long as you let us know which customer category these discounts need to be applied to. But if you're only dealing with a few members, anything below 15, then you can go ahead and add the discounts directly to the customer. So one way is directly through the discount. The next way that we can add a discount to a customer is by going to operations, selecting the members and contacts list, and selecting the customer that we want to apply the discount to. Now, discounts are hosted in the benefits tab. You'll see a little discount section here. And because we have already applied from the discount, we've added Ion to that customer list. You can see that the discount's already applied here. But if I wanted to apply the discount from here, I could just add a discount and select the adjustment discount. In this case, we've already done that, so we don't need to repeat that action. But this is the other way you can go about adding a discount to a customer. Now, we did select 100%, and we selected it to target all contracts. We can see here that Ion does have a contract, and it's for £500. So if you want to check, and if you want to double check that the discount's applying correctly, we can head over to the invoice section. You can add an invoice and include the plan charges for the contract in order to see whether or not that discount's being applied. And if we look down here, we'll see right now, there's nothing for the plan because we're discounting it at 100%. So the discount is applying correctly. We've targeted the correct item, and it's for 100%. So we don't see that item here. Now, Ion in this instance also has some products that repeat with their plan. So in some instances, you might have customers that have recurrent products attached to their plan, things like cleaning services or parking. If those items also need to be targeted by the discount, what you can do is, with the discount that has been created, we can go in and we can adjust the discount to make sure that it targets those items as well. So if we go to the Apply Discount To section and click on Discount Products, we can go ahead and we can select just those products that we want to target that are recurrent. So if I go ahead and select cleaning services as well as parking, then we've targeted the two items that are recurrent in this particular account that we want to discount due to the closures. So if I go ahead and save the change, I actually don't have to go in and reapply the discount to the customer because we've already added that discount, and we've simply come in here and changed the discount. That change is already going to take place. So again, if we want to check that, we can head over to the members area. We can look at Ion's account. And if we head over to the invoice, we can double check that not only is the discount targeting the plan, but also the recurrent products that are attached to that plan. So if I go here and add the invoice and we select once again to include plan charges, we will now see that not only is the plan discounted, but parking and cleaning services are also discounted at 100%. So these are the two most common scenarios we've seen with a lot of our spaces. The closure does tend to defer payment for the plans and for recurrent products. If you have alternative scenarios that you're exploring, I'd ask that you put that in the Q&A and we can take a look at that, or that you reach out directly to our support team as they'll be able to assist you with those specific needs. But this is in hope to assist you to make a discount that will keep your members active in the platform, that will allow them to continue to communicate with each other, but where they're not being invoiced for for their plans or for their recurrent products. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that joined us today. I hope this was informative and you were able to get an understanding of how this discount works, specifically as it relates to deferring a payment during this time. We're going to keep the session open for another 10 minutes so we can go through and answer outstanding questions. If we don't get to your questions today, we will email you and let you know that and answer your question. We'll also be following up with a recording of the call, as well as a link to where you can access some of the slides and additional information for today's webinar. So thank you for joining us. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and do stick around if you have additional questions for us.